once you step into a larger organization, you feel something shift inside of you.
Yes, even my wife once asked me the work you are doing, like all these process standards, rules, controls, making sure that everything works. And that's so boring. And that's not you because she knows me from home.
And welcome back, everyone, to BG5 Live. So it is now, we're moving into September. It's September 23rd. This is show number 28. Vanessa, we are like racking up the numbers here. I can't believe it. So why don't you give us a little intro and a check-in and let us know how things are?
Yeah, welcome everyone to BG5 Live, the show for BG5 and human design professionals, students, and enthusiasts who want a deeper understanding on how to apply human design to business so that they can thrive in their careers and support their clients in doing the same. And we're excited to be here for week 2 of focusing on OC16 with the wonderful Banu Seton. And we also have Forrest Nedred here, and we're going to be learning all kinds of fun stuff about OC16 and using human design BG5 in large businesses.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this segment. Actually, it's going to be going through the whole fall. So it was actually Vanessa's idea to have this whole season be about OC16, so large group dynamics, as Vanessa just said. And I'm just so excited to have Banu and Boris here today. Before we do, we can jump in. Sarah is, I think she may be joining us. Sarah is the assistant director of the school. And if you haven't heard, we are going to have one of our first live events. It's in the United States and it's in the city of Philadelphia. So if you are in and around the United States and you're looking for a gathering in live, so it's going to be in Philadelphia on October 11th. That's a Saturday. The details will be there. We'll be sending out emails for that as well. So that's kind of exciting. We're going to have this kind of informal gathering talking about design, charts, and whatever other kind of mischief. So if you're around on that weekend on the Philadelphia, if you don't know, it is on the East Coast. And so I'm looking forward to it. By the way, this is kind of off the cuff, a little bit random, but Jovian Archive redesigned their whole website. And so I got an email yesterday and I checked it out. So their new website looks pretty good. But as part of their rebrand, they also had Raw AI, which is what they did essentially is Loki, who's the CEO of Jovian Archive, and Ra's son, they took all of his recordings and all of his ebooks and PDFs and input it into an AI program. And so you can ask Ra questions through this AI program. So I began experimenting with just a free version yesterday, and it was kind of fun to explore with that. I haven't signed up for any other. There's like 2 versions of free and a sort of a more advanced one. So I haven't signed up for that one yet, but it was kind of fun to chat with Ra, through the waves. So that was fun. And Banu, welcome back. So nice to have you. So this is round 2 of OC16. So this is a really interesting chart. Anything you want to share with us about this to help us understand like all these different graphs that are so new to us?
Of course, yes. Thank you for hosting me for a second time and many more that we have agreed because this is going to be a series. So yes, when you step into more advanced modalities of applying BG5 as a consultant, or if you're interested and you're not a consultant yet, we step into new realms of how to use the chart. And although we use the same chart, the way we look at things and the meaning we give to them kind of changes as well. So what you see in here is, of course, my personal chart, which is up on the slide that you might be familiar with. And then down below, you see the OC16 power base influence chart that belongs to me. Yeah. So when we start working with individuals, and we would do so when we're working with leaders or anybody that belongs to organizations that are above 10 people, I say, then their activations in terms of OC16 come live, right? The moment we start belonging to groups or any transauric form like a penta, which is anything 3 to 5 people, or anything larger, yes, which is like an OC16, and that starts at around number 10. We start getting different frequencies affect us, and also certain things get called out of us at the same time. So this chart below shows my activations from an OC16 perspective. And of course, it takes three semesters to understand how to give meaning to that and to be able to consult with that. But we'll go deeper as we go along, and perhaps we were thinking of doing a understanding your design from an OC16 perspective, kind of 1 day allocation to that in BG5 Live, and then you can come and understand how it works for you. Yeah. But basically, it's the main business drivers, whether you have an activation, and then what belongs to the power base in a larger organization.
Sounds exciting. And I love your idea of having looking at your chart through the OC16 lens. It's really cool. So yeah, let's do that. We're gonna be like having you as a regular guest. We're gonna like just put you in once you're in like the slide deck, you're part of the crew. So we're excited to have you.
Well, thank you so much. My pleasure.
So here's Boris. And I gotta before I have Boris come on, whenever I look at his picture, if you're listening to the audio, you can't see it, but Boris has this like really amazing picture. It's really polished. And I always think of him when I look at his picture as like this really polished CEO of like some Fortune 500 company. So he looks like the real deal. We're excited to have him on. So Boris, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Mike. And yeah, I'm doing very well, and I'm glad that I'm part of the game today because I lived 25 years in a large corporate, ex-large corporate, 130,000 people working there, and I was the manager and leader of a group. And to me, all of that information when I started with my human design analyst education was immediately how can I relate that to business? And it was only until like 2.5 years ago, I found out that there's actually a business track, which is the BG5 Institute, and all the education that you get there, which is the business translation of the human design information. And that was the first time where it was really like that lens, and that is so correct. And yes, I love OC16 in particular because I grew up in a large scale business. And I have so many examples, and as well my own experience and history. I was the head of internal controls, and what you see in my chart is logical enforcement as a large business group strength. And that is where I ended up. And I was not volunteering for the job. I was pulled into that job. And this is what actually OC16 or the WA is about. It pulls what it needs. So there is a different lens, a different perspective of all of that human design information. When the groups get like small, the pentas, and then larger, the OC16s are multiples thereof. When it comes at play, and it's really fascinating, and for me it's so true, and I have numerous examples, patterns that I identified, analyzing lots of data and things like that. So for me, it absolutely stands true. So I'm happy to start joining that conversation today about what is coming, management.
Yeah.
And if I could just jump in to add to Boris's, so when Boris found BG5, we found each other. So and both of us coming from corporate backgrounds, because I also spent 25 years in corporate. And we had both decided to leave to follow our passion, which is around BG5 actually, and taking human design to businesses. So we started collaborating a lot. And then when I started teaching OC16, Boris invited me to be my assistant. So now we're doing the OC16 course together. with real life examples. And it really, I think, resonates better that way when we can see real life applications. So we're enjoying our cohort together, and we're in semester 3.
If I may add, this is what intrigues me as well. This make it palpable, make it practical, make it implementable, make it even more business language, more speaking to business function heads, executives, and things like that. So that is my aim, to say, like, look, this is knowledge that is there, that is so far not really used a lot, but it's so true, it's so unique, it's so clear at the end, and why teams work, why some teams don't work, and why it fits or doesn't fit, and it's all in here, and that is an amazing piece of work. Yeah.
For me, it's exciting to have the two of you on, and with your corporate background. I've never, like, as a counterpoint, I've never worked in a corporation, never even, the thought actually never even crossed my mind, not even once ever in my life. So the fact that you two are in the Institute, I think, is really important, because, everyone has their sort of their pull, and I can hear that both of you are pulled towards this. And my sense is, like you've been talking about, that you've lived that experience. You know what it's like to be in a corporation, and over a couple decades. And Boris, I love your story that you got pulled into the area that you're most capable of, excelling in within the company. That's really amazing. Should we jump in?
Yeah, let's do.
And so give us again a quick introduction. I know that there are 6 strengths, kind of what we call in the OC16 part of the chart. Give us a sense of where you want to start, and maybe why this is interesting for you.
Yep. So when we start working with any organization, about 10 people, different things, the transoric form starts organizing itself in a different way. I think that would be a good way of putting it. And all the individuals that happen to be part of that transoric form also contribute to it and get affected by that. So when we start looking at the OC16 structure, although it uses the same body graph chart, it represents a different being of its own, if I can put it that way. And we could think of it like in the personal chart, we look at some circuitry. And these are the business drivers in the transoric form that make that organization act as one, be one, carry that frequency, and work towards a common goal together. And there are 6 main OC16 channels, and that maps into business drivers for the OC16 knowledge. And this, of course, becomes hierarchical. The moment we step into the WA or an OC16, things start organizing themselves in a hierarchical way. So the chart that we had seen when we were looking at our introductory slides, we had seen some, well, if you just pull one, as you see, there are 6 lines with different color coding, and then there's a power base. So where it says management is the main organizing channel, the OC16 channel. Like the first one represented in like the orangish color is management, yes. And then the 45 and 21 is the main channel that leads that business driver. And then we have a power base that it looks for to accomplish what it is there to do. And same for the other ones. And then within the hierarchy, of course, the management organizes everything under one roof. So it becomes more important. But all these business drivers have different contributions for this organization to be successful. And when everybody does their job and the management keeps it under one roof towards one cause, then the organization can really become successful. And with the OC16 knowledge that we have, we talk about setting up the right pentas within that organization so they can function well, plus putting the lines of communication in place so we can really take advantage of the dynamics that are happening in the business, and then it can really work even better. Yeah? So these are the things that we really take a deep dive look in the certification course that we do. And today we wanted to talk about management. It's a good place to start because it sits at the top of the hierarchy and organizes the rest.
So I'm going to ask you like a super basic question here, which is, so you're talking about each of these categories. So we have management, competitiveness, direction, logical enforcement, interaction, innovation. Those are actually strengths in the body graph. I think we have an image, we can look
Yes.
at it in a minute.
Yes.
So does someone who has one of those strengths, does that mean there is someone who can fit in a larger organization? I know this is a
Yes.
total one-on-one question, but
Well, it's a good question to ask. Yes. So the moment someone has one of the OC16 channels, the whole strength itself, then we would expect that that person feels well within a large organization. Their gifts are called out in such an organization, and they will probably call to executive positions or leadership positions within such organizations. And as in Boris's example, if somebody has that, the organization kind of senses it and automatically calls that out of the person. So like in Boris's design, as you're showing in logical enforcement, he has the 2750 in his design as a strength. So then he has the channel, and he has been the worldwide head of internal controls and IT for a 130,000 people organization in the past, right?
wow.
So if anyone has any of these strengths, then you probably know already that you will feel good in large orgs and be called to go up.
I have another question for you. You ready? So I don't, in my design, I don't have any of these OC16 strengths, but I can look at what you're calling the numbers on the right, the power base, but there's certain areas where I do have a lot of traits defined in my design. Does that mean I might be pulled into like a department like that?
Exactly. So the power base is actually organized by the main channel of the strength itself. It's a good way of thinking like that. And then if you have activations within that power base, the one that carries the most activations for you will probably be the one that you get pulled into. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your favorite place to be. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. And you might be having a completely different job, but you always find yourself pulled into such task forces, projects, or people give you such tasks. So then it might be really derailing you from what you were there to do in the first place because you're getting pulled into such power bases.
So when I look at this chart, I feel like I would have ended up in Boris's department. I have a lot of logic circuitry in my design, which is part of what it's under his umbrella. So Boris, I might have been one of your minions, in your department. One of
And
the,
is it something
many...
you enjoy? So I can ask you a question. Is it something you enjoy, enforcing rules, making sure setting up processes, making sure it's applied?
The process is yes. Logical enforcement, that's not my field of expertise. But I used to be a karate black belt. Boris, would that count for anything?
I think so.
I'm being silly right now.
Look, any kind of certification, anything like proof and rubber stamping, something is according to a certain set of rules that you apply, that you learned and trained up for, is for me logical enforcement.
Yeah.
So it links.
In some ways, I feel like teaching where you're bringing in a lot of the theory. It's not enforcement per se, but it's bringing together the logic of the human design BG5 system.
Yeah.
So it feels a little bit under that umbrella too.
I also have the logical enforcement strength and the direction, finance, and planning. And it was interesting how I got called into both of those things. Early on in my early 20s, I actually, and it's funny because I don't have this BG5 strength at all, but like accounting and planning and administration, I didn't have either one of those. But I think with that 214, I got promoted. Somebody got let go and I got promoted into their position, which was all about finance and planning. And I was studying finance in school, but I wouldn't have promoted me into that. I think my fifth line probably helped as well. And I ended up doing fine in it. Like I didn't love it, but I did fine in it. And I also, the logical enforcement, that definitely comes up a lot too. And
yeah,
I have mixed feelings about it.
So it's great to know. So as a consultant, like how we study the body graph in its totality and we spend a lot of time. But if you're working with anybody who's part of such organizations or they're building a career, then if you have studied OC16 and you know this, then there's so much we can pull into the personal application just by looking at, does somebody have OC16 activations? Do they have power-based activations? And how does that show up in their life? I think this is the most that the OC16 information can be used by consultants. And then, of course, we can do team coaching. We can work with alphas to make better use of their team in terms of taking advantage of what's there in the background. But it really helps a lot to know these things, because you're really taking your practice to a different level if you can pull in different information.
Yeah,
Listening to you talk, it's just amazing how practical this information is. I'm really loving this because it's really demystifying this area of human design, BG5, that I just haven't really tapped into. So it's kind of fascinating. By the way, so if you're listening to this, you can't see the slides that we're looking at. So basically, just to recap, Banu's giving us, there are 6 strengths in the body graph chart. So we have the 45-21, which is management, 51-25, which is competitiveness. And she'll be going through these in the next couple months. We have the 214, we have the defense circuit, the 2750, the 59-6, and the 360. Now, the power base that Boris and Banu are talking about is related to the different circuits. So if you have a sense of a little bit of human design and how the body graph works, you'll have a little bit of sense. So these power bases aren't always necessarily related to the circuits they're a part of. So the management is tribal. The competitiveness is essentially the centering circuit. Direction of 214 is the top part of the individual knowing in that center column, 61-24, 43-23, and the 1-8. And then the logical enforcements, which Boris is a master at, it's part of the logic circuit. All of the logic strengths and strengths and traits are part of that. With interaction, it's all the abstract circuit. So it's interesting how these different OC16 strengths pull from each of the circuits. So I'm guessing there's some kind of theory behind that, but it's really interesting. So we're trying to just kind of create a foundation for the beginner to understand all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you learn more, you can keep on building layers and layers onto your knowledge. So now when I look at the chart, and then there are like different levels that jump, right? On the personal level, what happens if this person is part of a smaller organization? What happens they're working in their own aura, or maybe they're working in someone else's aura? And then if they're part of a bigger crowd, what happens? So you can take different levels of approaches using the same chart with different meanings, of course, with different layers.
It sounds fascinating. Is this something you would like to start talking about management, or is there anything else we should cover there before we skip over?
Well, I think we can get started unless there was anything you wanted to offer, Boris, as we are.
maybe something to add, because Banu, you mentioned it. For me, there is quote human design, which I would call personal. And then you have quote the BG5 world, which is more or less the teams, the smaller team and the larger team. And when you look at my chart, and this is when I recalled my own history, my own life, there is what you see, the environmental style is for me partnership or large group. I never ever played in a team which was less than 10, 11, 12 people. So football or volleyball, where there were multiple teams. I never worked at work in small groups, like 3 to 5 people. It was always larger, or it was like one-on-ones, partnership. So even at like reflection, it was like, no, Boris, you're not supposed to work in small groups. you're supposed to work in large groups or play or do sports in large groups or on a one-on-one basis. And that's well collaborative working style and things that all comes together. And that is for me as well, when I'm alone, I'm a completely different person to when I'm at a large group in a business context. Then comes my logical enforcement that kicks in. Processes, tools, regulation, standards, how we shape working patterns, how do we arrange work, doubting everything what is there first. So all of that comes at play. I
All right,
think
Boris,
this is
hold on
for
one
me.
second. I wanna unpack that for a moment. It's a really
Yeah.
interesting what you just said. So if I heard this correctly, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, when you are just sort of out and about doing your own thing, you experience yourself one way, but once you step into a larger organization, you feel something shift inside of you. Do I have that right?
Yes, even my wife once or multiple times asked me as well, the work you are doing, like all these process standards, rules, controls, making sure that everything works. And that's so boring. And that's not you because she knows me from home. At work, I was thriving in it. I was like instilling new processes, amending things, making it more effective, looking what's working or not, reshaping it. A completely different Boris. So it was like a Jekyll and Hyde, if I may say so. It's really different. And
Yeah.
it's what
When
was
I look
pulled
at your
out of me.
chart, when I look at your chart, I don't see any of that in there, like from a personal perspective. Like all those things you're talking about, I couldn't if you told me that and I didn't know anything else about you, I'd be like, what do you mean? That doesn't fit with your design. But there's something in that one place in your design, the 5027, that pulls you into this whole other arena.
Yes. And that's the thing, and that's the different look at the chart. Yes, I know my human design is quote quote the Boris I know. I know privately, I know who I am. But that's the lower part here is the Boris who is at work in larger context. In a larger context, being a team of 9, 10, 12 people or upwards. This is
I
where,
have
where
to say,
like this kicks in.
that's fascinating to me. I never, I never got that. I think mainly because my area of expertise is not OC16. So again, it's another reason I'm excited to have you two here. It's fascinating to me.
It is absolutely fascinating because it literally pulls out different things. I know my human design very well. I know my OC16 very well. And there's really this, I realize the change that happens in me when suddenly my listening is as well different. I'm suddenly hearing that there's something not working. Maybe let's see why it's not working. Where's the loophole in the steps that are following each other? Where is the missing link in the sequence of something? This is where suddenly my hearing is different. That is definitely something, yeah, which is in the lower part of this presentation slide. Yeah.
Yeah. When I look at your design, there's some almost like these mystical qualities, these deeper, attunement to the deeper aspects of life. And yet I have a sense, and I don't know if this is true, but while you were doing that work, some of that came into your ability to work with these. Like when you talk about listening on a really deep level, you're listening to not within, but to the organization itself.
It's like for me, it comes out of this my four traits in the emotional intelligence that are this kind of social listening, this listening in between the lines, this and then my conceptualization inspiration that is linked together, this looking for something that is not there yet. It's kind of there, but not visible yet, like
Mm.
bringing it out. And this is, I think, all coming together. And this is so fast. I read a process and I immediately know that these are the steps that are missing or that are wrong, or this is where the controls are wrongly placed, or things like that. It's just as if it is there. And others look at me like, how the hell did you see that immediately? I was like, it's there, it's obvious. It's just like jumping to me. And that
It's a
is,
little spooky when you describe it like that. It's a little spooky.
yeah, it is spooky and it's,
Like this
yeah,
power that kind of emerges in these very specific environments.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. So, Banu?
Yeah, so maybe we wanna talk about management a little bit, and we will. I think we definitely invite Boris for the logical enforcement piece because he's a he's the logical enforcement guy, and I'm the innovation queen. So we from an OC16 perspective. So that's how we joke around. As you can see, innovations, I have 70% in that. So if you go back, just to show people how it works. So in terms of innovation at the very bottom, although I don't have the channel itself, I have 70% of the activations there. And I've always been pulled into what's new and what comes next with the totality of me orchestrating things. That's my thing. Yeah. All right, let's talk about management, and then we will, because it's the moment we step into such groups, 10 and above, we start organizing hierarchically, and it becomes like an automatic thing. Otherwise, it's very hard to keep everybody on the same page. If you have a few number of people, then it might be easier for us to organize because we're all able to talk to each other. Maybe we're in proximity to each other. But when the number gets large, it's harder to organize one-on-one, and then the hierarchy kicks in. So, and management from an OC16 perspective is what sits at the top of the hierarchy. And if you think about any organization, it could be a non-profit organization, it could be a football club, right? A sports organization, or a corporation that can go up to so many more people. There is somebody who sits at the top, usually the CEO, yes, who speaks on behalf of the organization. And that says we, quote unquote, on behalf of everyone. And this person actually kind of leads this organization at the same time. So when we look at the 45 and 21, they actually take different roles from an OC16 perspective. So we might find people who have the whole strength. So they have that channel of management from an OC16 perspective, or maybe you just have the 45 or 21. And what this organization or the management actually does is it educates or indoctrinates people in such a way that everybody can go in the same direction. And it sets why are we here? Why are we here? And what are we going to do together? And how are we going to do that? Yes, and orchestrates the rest of the channels and the rest of the organization, so everybody contributes to the common good or common goal of why we got together. So if it was a corporation, it's for material success, and maybe some other KPIs that they're driving. It can include some sustainability targets and other things along with the profits or the material material results that need to be driven in terms of that organization. So the CEO actually is more the mouthpiece of the organization, so speaks on behalf of the organization as we. And if we thought of it, this is more like the figurehead of the organization, perhaps the person who speaks to the press, holds the town halls, and stands up for the organization to the outside. And then on the other side, we have the 21, which we may relate more like a chief operating officer, the person who really runs the operations and who really controls that things are taking place. So we have to sell, we have to deliver, and all that. They're really controlling the drive of the organization. And if we looked at the chart, and Boris had done this chart when we were running some webinars together, it's kind of color-coded as well. You will see built into it, there's an orange part, so the CEO's part, and you will see it's linked to the emotions and the feel of the group, and really is about the drive. And then the yellow, which is the 21, and everything around it, where it's the guy who controls, yes, or the person, yes, it could be a lady, of course, that controls, the COO. And this is more around how are we going to survive as an organization, and do we have the will to really deliver it? So along the way, these kind of organizes into the power bases to work for the organization to organize itself. And with that, maybe I give it to you, Boris, to see if you have anything to add. I just gave a very high level snapshot of what it means.
There is an interesting twist for me because it's here as well on the slide. The slide is called management. It's the organizing gender is called management, and then there's this little icon that is there which talks leadership. And there is for me a subtle difference between leadership and management. And this is where I see a 45 as being the leader and a 21 as being the manager. And for me, management and leadership has a different focus and impact. Managing is, when we talk management, there's certain tasks that are executed by management, and it's execution oriented. It's the controlling, it's the planning, it's the administering, it's the organizing, it's the backfilling, the communication, and the stuffing and things like that. That is management, making sure that things run effectively, run efficiently. That is management. A leader, and this is where these icons come into play, empowering people, vision, inspiring, sharing a vision. That is more future looking. This is more touching the people. And this is why the 45 has this link to the emotion intelligence. It's like bringing up the emotions, enforcing, quote, quote, indoctrinating the we. We belong to Microsoft. We belong to NVIDIA. We belong to the BG5 Institute. It's this we that is instilled. And that is coming from the leader. And when you think of it, a manager is quote, focusing on doing the things right. And the leader is doing the right things. Same words, subtle difference. And example is like a manager would run a train system, like the schedules, the tracks, the timing, the safety procedures, the protocols, the efficiency, how many trains we need, how many drivers do we need, and things like that. And the leader would decide where should the tracks go. And that's for me the difference, and that is for me embodied in the 45 and the 21, the leader and the manager, the CEO and the COO. And that is for me, that is as well embedded in the chart. This is what you see here. This is the different colors that Banu was talking about. And that is, for me, something I want to bring in. That is how I see it, and I relate to it.
Just to build on what Boris said, and Mike, if you want to just maybe we stop the sharing so I can see everybody. We have a discussion. It would be better to have a discussion maybe. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I was just building on what Boris said. So we can think of like what the 45 does for the organization, apart from being the spokesperson, indoctrinating and showing how we are and standing up and speaking about that to the outside world. We also, when we study in semester 1 in OC16, we talk about like the traditional figures. So the 45 is more like the, I always like saying Queen of England. I still am not used to the King of England. So it would be like the royal figurehead of the company who stands up and speaks. And then there is somebody who runs the country. Yeah, so there was the Queen of England, and then there's the Prime Minister that actually runs the country. And then the Queen represented, or the King represents the country to the outside, to the inside, speaks on behalf of we, and somebody runs the country, the operations. So we can also think of the 45 as the royal head, and then the Prime Minister as the one who leads.
I have a question for the both of you. So about 8 to 10 years ago, I was working in a small consulting company, and the owner of the company had the 21, and the COO had the 45. You can see where this is going, right? So why don't you help us understand, like, so the company thrived for a certain period of time, and then I think it was within 3 to 5 years, it just basically kind of exploded. So any reflections, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it depends on how people manage the relationship, actually. Because when you think about it, if something is defined in our chart, it means we have a more defined way of living that. If something is not defined in our chart, we still have it, right? It's not like we don't have it, but it might come up in a more flexible way, or it's there, it's not there. So I think it depends on how the relationship is really managed and who steps in to take which role, and whether trust can be built and respect can be built between those two people. So obviously, although you didn't explain the rest of the story, I'm assuming that didn't work for that example that you spoke about, Mike. But yeah, this is my perspective. Sometimes we are too defined to say, if something is defined as if it's more important than it not being defined. To me, we all have everything. And it's always in consulting, asking the people, how is that really showing up in your life? And by asking the right questions, we can really help them understand. And then if it's not something that they like or they'd like to change, with awareness, we can start something new for people we work with.
Boris, I want to turn it over to you and give me 1 sec. But so for anyone who doesn't know, so like Boris and Banu have been talking about, so the 21, if we just looking at it in the chart, it's about control. And so when we're thinking just on a personal level, so needing control in my finances, my foods, my place where I stay, my relationship, that control is really something is very important. And so my friend who owned this company, he had the 21 as his conscious core essence. And so giving up control of his company, so he was the owner, he had control, was at first he did it because there was a bigger vision, but the need to control things became, I think, overwhelming. And so I think that's one of the reasons that the CEO who was helping to build a company according to his vision, I think really struggled with the kind of level of control that person needed.
Yeah.
Boris, did you want to add anything?
Maybe it's as well something I felt, because I was part of a company where the CEO was changed 3 times. The first CEO was a very charismatic, very inspiring leader that had the 45. When he spoke we, I believed in the we. And we had a brilliant COO, Chief Operating Officer, that was running the show, all the factories, all the production lines, everything. And he was good in all the financials and well respected at the stock exchange and things like that. Then the first CEO stepped down and the CEO replaced the CEO. When he was talking I didn't believe him.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel right. It was off. I can't explain it. He used the same words, he used the same we, he used the same language, but it was not the same feeling. Then he stepped down, he went to the oversight board, and a new CEO came. Again, a very charismatic person. He has the 45-21, so he has the organizing channel of management. Same thing. He was the chief financial officer before, became the CEO. He could speak that you were touched.
Yeah.
You could cry when he was
Yes.
telling sad stories, and you could fall in tears out of joy just because he was doing jokes. And it's this kind of thing that is in there. But coming back to what you said is, we are all people, and we are all given the strength of a mouth. We can talk, we can communicate. And that is what I would encourage people that are into this information, BG5 consultants, getting trained up. Look at what you have. Look at the people, listen to them. What do they want? Where do you see the issue? Because when I first started with human design, I was like, I'm a builder or a generator. I have a gut decision decision-making strategy. I am like that. And that's not true. I am more than the chart. I'm a living human being. I'm learning. I'm getting educated. I experience new things. So there's all this wealth that comes together. And then it's talking to the people and having your situation where, quote, quote, the position they have is with the wrong trait, like the CEO having the 21 and the CEO at the 45, it could still work. If you point out to these people, quote, quote, what is the underlying dynamic, what they experience, and possibly then you find a common denominator, how they could engage and talk to each other. I think this is the essence out of it. Don't take it black and white. Life is gray. It's always a mix of a lot of things, and it comes handy. And if I think business, I always call this holy trinity: people, process, tools. If you have the people you can deal with without firing, hiring, or whatever, it's what you have. You have to work with what you have, but you have the other components as well: the process and the tools. How can tools support you in what you do? How can you rearrange processes in shaping things differently, reallocating tasks and work to other people? And this is ultimately what we talk management. This is what management does. It does the coordination. Who does what? And this is like as well a thing. If you can talk to the people as a consultant, these are typically deciders, managers, and so on. And they can shape things in a new way. Yeah.
So we just got a nice comment from one of our listeners. I love it. Process
people process tools. PowerPoint, PPT.
Yes, I like it. So we're just about out of time. Thank you so much. Banu, what can we expect in our next session, which is going to be on Tuesday? Is it October 7th? Vanessa, does that sound right?
I don't know.
Yes, I think it's
For some reason, I
October
never
7th.
plan ahead for the dates. It's the second Tuesday in October. So I
That
think
is, yeah.
that wouldn't be the 7th, because that would be the first Tuesday.
Actually, the second Tuesday is going to be the 14th. So the 14th and the 28th. Okay. So, Boris, will we see you again, or was this a one-time special visit?
Look, I love OC16. If I feel happy to come.
Right. You're welcome. So you guys are going to be part of our fall for sure, Vanessa and I. Thank you so much, Boris. Thank you so much. But is there anything you want to point us to what we're going to be looking at in our next session?
Yeah, I propose we continue with the main business drivers. So we go through all the 6 and people can start understanding what it means from an organizational perspective and also at the personal level. And then, as we had discussed, I'm also going to try to invite people from classes or who have these. If we have people who have these strengths, it kind of helps to hear from them how they've been experiencing it. So we can also invite more people, and everybody's welcome to BG5 already. So if you do have them, please drop in. So we will continue next week, probably we can go with the next one. We can do competitiveness.
The 2551.
Yeah.
That sounds great. So my big takeaway today as we sign off is Boris is helping me understand that, we have our design. It sort of operates individually. And as we know, is studying human design BG5, we also interact with people. But the fact that Boris took on a role that in everyday life would be the last role you would think about, but that the organization grabbed this one part of his design and pulled him into a role that ultimately he was really suited for in a very specific environment, which was a large organization. So I've never heard a story like that. It was really fascinating. I really appreciate it. So that was my big takeaway today. All right, everyone, thank you so much. From Vanessa and I, we're really excited to see you on October 14th, Tuesday, October 14th for our next show. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you.